The morning sun filtering through the expansive glass windows of the beach house did absolutely nothing to warm the chilling realization washing over Will Spencer. Waking up from a heavy haze of alcohol-induced despair, the sight of Melissa Dillon lying beside him was not a comfort, but a horrifying testament to his own destructive emotional spiral. The crushing weight of regret settled heavily on his chest, manifesting as a physical ache that mirrored the immense guilt he felt for betraying the only woman he truly loved, Electra Forrester. This intimate encounter was never supposed to happen. The night was born out of profound vulnerability, severe intoxication, and the agonizing isolation he felt after the disastrous, violent brawl at the bikini bar that had alienated him from the Forrester family. As Will stared blankly at the ceiling, listening to the rhythmic crashing of the ocean waves outside, he knew with absolute certainty that he had to distance himself from Melissa immediately. His battered and bruised heart still belonged entirely to Electra, and he was fiercely determined to find a way, any way, to win her back and repair the catastrophic damage he had inflicted upon their once beautiful relationship. However, Melissa Dillon was not a woman who easily relinquished a prize she had fought so ruthlessly and calculatingly to claim. Beneath her carefully constructed, innocent facade of the supportive, sweet friend lay a predatory ambition that rivaled the most seasoned corporate sharks in the Los Angeles fashion district. She had already bragged to her coworker Jessica at the bikini bar about reeling in the vulnerable Spencer heir, viewing their night together not as a drunken mistake, but as a triumphant, strategic victory. Yet, as the days passed and Will's emotional distance became glaringly obvious, Melissa recognized the extreme precariousness of her situation. She could sense Will actively slipping through her fingers, his mind constantly drifting back to the luxurious Forrester mansion and the woman who had thrown her necklace at him in absolute disgust. Melissa knew that a mere one-night stand was insufficient to secure the luxurious, incredibly wealthy future she envisioned for herself. She needed an unbreakable anchor, a permanent tether that would bind Will Spencer to her forever, rendering Electra Forrester a distant, unreachable memory. The sudden arrival of Darcy Dillon in Los Angeles provided the exact catalyst Melissa needed to elevate her desperate maneuvering into a terrifying masterclass of psychological manipulation. Darcy was a formidable, fiercely protective, and highly ambitious matriarch who immediately recognized the boundless financial and social potential of the vast Spencer fortune. When Melissa confided in her mother about Will's attempts to pull away and return to Electra, Darcy did not offer gentle maternal comfort. She offered a ruthless, foolproof strategy. The two women, united by a shared, insatiable thirst for high society status and financial security, meticulously orchestrated a diabolical scheme designed to permanently trap the young Spencer heir. They deeply understood that Will possessed a deep-seated sense of honor, duty, and morality, traits he desperately clung to in order to differentiate himself from the complicated legacy of his family. To exploit this noble vulnerability, Darcy and Melissa crafted a narrative so emotionally devastating and morally binding that Will would have absolutely no choice but to surrender his freedom, his future, and his heart. The trap was sprung with devastating, calculated precision when Melissa approached Will with fake tears glistening in her eyes and a perfectly rehearsed trembling voice, delivering a massive bombshell that would alter the trajectory of his life forever. Looking him directly in the eyes, she claimed she was pregnant with his child, carrying the next generation of the powerful Spencer dynasty. For Will, the carefully delivered announcement was akin to a brutal physical blow, a concussive shockwave that instantly shattered his desperate hopes of ever reconciling with Electra. The walls of his world rapidly closed in as he struggled to process the overwhelming magnitude of Melissa's words. He was already drowning in an ocean of guilt over his violent outburst that had accidentally injured family patriarch Eric Forrester, and now, the universe was demanding he take immediate, lifelong responsibility for another massive, life-altering consequence of his reckless, drunken behavior. The psychological toll on the young man was immense, trapping him in a suffocating vortex of obligation, panic, and profound despair. Driven by an overwhelming sense of guilt and a desperate, agonizing desire to do the right thing, Will made the heartbreaking decision to stand by Melissa. He could not abandon an innocent child, nor could he allow his family's prestigious name to be tarnished by shameful allegations of him being a deadbeat, absentee father. In a somber moment that felt more like a tragic funeral for his own happiness than a joyous celebration of new life, Will formally agreed to an engagement. He slipped a diamond ring onto Melissa's finger, his eyes completely devoid of the passionate, fiery spark that had once defined his profound love for Electra. It was a hollow, entirely loveless commitment, a cold transaction born of manipulation and accepted out of a tragic sense of duty. Melissa played the role of the overjoyed, blushing fiancée to absolute perfection, while Darcy watched from the sidelines, a triumphant, wicked smirk playing on her lips as she successfully secured her family's golden ticket into the exclusive upper echelons of Los Angeles high society. However, Katie Logan Spencer was not so easily deceived by the sudden romance and miraculous pregnancy. A mother's intuition is a powerful, undeniable force, and Katie immediately sensed the dark, calculating undercurrents swirling beneath Melissa's sudden pregnancy announcement and the unusually hasty engagement. Katie had never trusted Melissa, having previously launched a fierce, private investigation into the young woman's dark past, her gold digger tendencies, and her potential, terrifying connections to the tragic fate of Luna Nozoa. Watching her beloved son, Will, rapidly transform into a hollow, depressed shell of his former self, visibly trapped in a joyless relationship, ignited a fierce, protective maternal rage within Katie. She adamantly refused to stand idly by while her son's bright future was hijacked by a pair of opportunistic, manipulative grifters. Operating in the shadows to avoid alerting the enemy, Katie initiated a covert, relentless investigation, determined to unearth the medical records, the timelines, and the undeniable proof that this pregnancy was nothing more than a fabricated scheme designed to extort the Spencer family. Katie's relentless, aggressive pursuit of the truth inevitably brought her face-to-face with the formidable and dangerous Darcy Dillon. The explosive clash between the two powerful matriarchs was a terrifying masterclass in psychological warfare. Katie, armed with righteous indignation and the vast, unlimited resources of the Spencer media empire, demanded immediate answers, bluntly accusing Darcy and Melissa of orchestrating a vile, criminal extortion plot against her son. Darcy, however, remained chillingly composed, defending her daughter's fabricated rights with a venomous, arrogant elegance. She cruelly taunted Katie, suggesting that the great Katie Logan was simply unable to accept that her precious, flawed son had made his bed and now had to lie in it. The tension violently crackled in the air as Katie vowed to expose the Dillons for the frauds they truly were, promising that she would not rest until Will was freed from their toxic grip and the ugly truth was broadcast to the entire international fashion industry. It was in this moment of escalating, dangerous conflict that Melissa dropped her sweet, innocent facade entirely, revealing the true, terrifying depths of her malice. Realizing that Katie's relentless investigation posed a lethal threat to their carefully constructed empire of lies, Melissa resorted to the ultimate, nuclear trump card, blackmail. She confronted Katie with a chilling, sociopathic calmness, revealing that she possessed damning, irrefutable evidence of Will's violent assault on Eric Forrester at the bikini bar. While the public and the police knew of the general altercation, Melissa claimed to hold exclusive, unseen, high-definition security footage, or perhaps a highly incriminating, secretly recorded confession from Will himself, that proved his actions were not merely a drunken accident resulting from RJ ducking, but a display of unhinged, malicious, and intentional violence. This hidden evidence, Melissa darkly warned, would be more than enough to guarantee Will a lengthy prison sentence and utterly destroy his life forever. The crushing weight of Melissa's vicious threat completely paralyzed Katie. The blackmail was a masterstroke of cruelty, brilliantly leveraging Katie's deepest, most terrifying fears against her. If Katie continued her investigation and successfully exposed the fake pregnancy, Melissa would immediately release the damning evidence to the authorities and the media. The resulting catastrophic scandal would not only send Will to a brutal prison environment, but would also completely annihilate the fragile reputation of Logan Creations, the fashion house Katie and Bill had sacrificed so much to build. Katie found herself trapped in an impossible, agonizing dilemma. She held the key to proving her son was being conned, yet turning that key would trigger a massive explosion that would obliterate his freedom and his future entirely. The Dillons had successfully weaponized Will's past mistakes, transforming his darkest, most regretful moment into a heavy iron chain that bound him to them indefinitely. Forced into a devastating, agonizing silence, Katie had to watch in pure agony as her son marched toward the altar with a woman who was actively holding a metaphorical knife to his throat. She could not warn Bill Spencer, knowing his notoriously volatile temper and immense power would lead him to take drastic, potentially illegal actions against the Dillons, which would only expedite Will's downfall and trigger the release of the video. She could not warn Will, because the crushing guilt he already carried regarding Eric Forster's injury would likely cause him to surrender himself to the police just to escape Melissa's suffocating web. Katie was entirely isolated in her horrifying knowledge, bearing the excruciating, lonely burden of a mother who knows her child is walking into a burning building but is strictly forbidden from sounding the alarm. The psychological torment of this forced compliance began to severely eat away at Katie's resolve, testing the absolute limits of her emotional endurance. For Will, the engagement felt like a life sentence in a maximum security emotional prison. He was entirely cut off from the vibrant, passionate life he had once envisioned for himself. Every smile he forced for the flashing cameras, every public appearance he made with Melissa clinging to his arm, was a sickening betrayal of his own soul. He spent his sleepless nights staring out at the dark ocean from the beach house, his mind tortured by beautiful, haunting memories of Electra. He remembered the way she laughed, the way she fiercely challenged him, and the devastating, heartbroken look of pure horror on her face when she witnessed his violence. He yearned to run to the Forster mansion, to fall to his knees and beg for her forgiveness, to explain that his heart was exclusively hers. But the imaginary chains of his impending fatherhood held him firmly in place, a tragic, silent victim of his own misplaced sense of honor and duty. Electra Forster, meanwhile, remained entirely oblivious to the sinister extortion plot trapping her former lover. From her perspective, Will's swift, highly publicized engagement to Melissa Dillon was the ultimate, unforgivable insult, a glaring confirmation that his previous apologies were entirely empty and his love was a complete lie. The shocking news of the Spencer heir's impending marriage to her former friend and assistant served to harden Electra's heart, pushing her further away from her past and deeper into the comforting, albeit complicated, arms of R.J. Forster. She threw herself entirely into her work, successfully leading the new youth demographic line at Forster Creations, using her fierce ambition as a heavy shield against the lingering, sharp pain of Will's perceived betrayal. The tragic irony was palpable and heartbreaking. The two young lovers were separated not by a lack of profound affection, but by a meticulously constructed, impenetrable wall of deceit and malicious blackmail. Darcy Dillon openly reveled in the massive success of their operation. She quickly began to aggressively integrate herself into the luxurious, privileged lifestyle afforded by her daughter's proximity to the boundless Spencer fortune. She demanded VIP treatment at Forster Creations and Logan Creations alike, using the impending birth of the Spencer heir as a golden, untouchable shield against any criticism or pushback. Darcy's loud, arrogant presence in Los Angeles became a constant, irritating reminder to the established dynasties that their wealth and power could be easily infiltrated by those ruthless enough to exploit their emotional weaknesses. She clashed frequently with Bill Spencer, who, entirely unaware of the blackmail, viewed Darcy as a necessary, highly annoying nuisance to be managed for the sake of his grandchild. Darcy played the role of the protective, doting grandmother-to-be with sickening perfection, all while keeping a tight, controlling leash on Melissa to ensure the younger woman did not crack under the immense pressure of their massive lie. The tension within the beach house, however, grew increasingly unbearable. Melissa, despite having successfully secured the diamond ring and the promise of a wealthy, secure future, found herself living with a silent ghost. Will was physically present but emotionally entirely absent. He dutifully fulfilled his obligations, attended the necessary medical appointments, which Darcy meticulously and fraudulently staged to maintain the illusion of the pregnancy. But he offered Melissa no warmth, no affection, and absolutely no love. The cold, harsh reality of her loveless victory began to truly set in. Melissa had won the vicious battle for the Spencer fortune, but she was slowly, painfully realizing that she would spend the rest of her life sleeping next to a man who deeply despised her, a man whose every heartbeat belonged to another woman. The golden cage she had so carefully built for Will was now also securely trapping her. As the engagement progressed, the stakes continued to rise exponentially. The fashion industry loudly buzzed with the news of the upcoming Spencer wedding, turning it into a highly publicized, inescapable spectacle. For Katie Logan, every congratulatory bouquet of flowers and every intrusive media inquiry felt like a brutal physical assault. She began to desperately, frantically search for a legal loophole, a way to neutralize the blackmail material Melissa held without exposing Will to legal ruin and public humiliation. Katie considered hiring elite private investigators to steal the evidence, or perhaps finding a way to discredit Melissa so thoroughly that the police would immediately dismiss any evidence she presented as a vindictive, fabricated lie. The normally highly ethical and straightforward Katie was being violently pushed into the dark, murky waters of corporate espionage and sabotage, proving that a desperate mother will go to any terrifying lengths to protect her cub. The ongoing psychological warfare took a severe, visible toll on Will's mental and physical health. The vibrant, confident young man who had once boldly challenged the Forster legacy was now a subdued, anxious, and deeply depressed shadow of himself. The constant, paralyzing fear of his violent past being exposed, coupled with the crushing, heavy guilt of his fabricated impending fatherhood, pushed him dangerously close to the brink of a complete nervous breakdown. He began to intentionally isolate himself from his brothers, Liam and Wyatt, unable to look them in the eye and lie about his supposed happiness. Wyatt, who had previously warned Will about the severe dangers of his involvement with Melissa, immediately sensed that something was fundamentally and terribly wrong. Wyatt's sharp, investigative instincts threatened to uncover the blackmail, adding another layer of perilous complexity to the highly explosive situation. The impending nuptials cast a dark, ominous shadow over both the Spencer and Forster families. What was traditionally meant to be a joyous union of love had been violently twisted into a terrifying hostage situation, a masterclass in psychological manipulation orchestrated by a mother-daughter duo who viewed human lives as mere stepping stones to unimaginable wealth. The tragic, beautiful romance of Will and Electra had been violently derailed, replaced by a cold, calculating, and entirely fraudulent transaction. As the wedding date rapidly approached, the intense pressure cooker of dark secrets, vicious blackmail, and unrequited love threatened to explode with devastating force, promising a massive detonation that would leave absolutely no one in Los Angeles unscathed. In the glamorous, cutthroat world of Los Angeles, where massive fashion empires rise and fall on the unpredictable whims of public opinion, the true, most devastating battles are fought in the hidden shadows of the heart. Will Spencer's terrifying entrapment is a chilling, sobering reminder that the most dangerous predators do not always wield physical weapons. Sometimes, they wield a positive pregnancy test and a meticulously crafted, unbreakable lie. As Katie Logan desperately races against time to dismantle the Dillon syndicate and save her son from a life of misery, the audience is left breathless, watching a heartbreaking tragedy unfold in agonizing slow motion. Will the truth miraculously emerge before Will says, "I do"? Or is the Spencer heir permanently doomed to a lifetime of silent suffering in a loveless, manipulated marriage? The drama continues to unfold, proving that in this city, love is undeniably the most dangerous game of all.